Hi, welcome to Walking Wilder. I'm Bark. This is an intuitive tarot channel. I read a lot about shadow work and that kind of thing, self-help. The theme for today's reading is accepting my imperfections. So whoever this reading is meant for, there's this theme of needing to perhaps look at some of your insecurities, accepting that no, you're not perfect. None of us are. And perhaps also, the way you see yourself, how does the world around you mirror back to you? I kind of get this feeling with the image here of the eyes in the water. What is the world showing you? Often, it's other people mirror back to us what we might not always see in ourselves. So there's something about that. All right, Spirit, let's see here. What else can you tell me about the main theme of this reading for whoever is viewing it? Welcome in if you're new. Welcome back if you've been here before. I really appreciate you. Let's see here. There's this thing of... I think one more. We have one more, Spirit. Observation and play at the bottom. I get this feeling of you searching for something with this card here, but not, a physical thing, but more, it feels like you searching for your place in the world, your feeling of belonging somehow. This card here is the bottom of the deck, play, and community is underneath that. I kind of have this feeling of you not really feeling like you fit in, feeling like you're somehow out of terms. I hear. I don't really know. That's, but over here is the shape-shifting card. It's kind of like there's this underlying thing of you having to try to fit into something that's not your natural state of being, your natural way of seeing things. This card, waterproofed here, my feeling with this is that it's like you kind of develop this ability to let other people's, whatever they say, kind of glide off of you, but that doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. It just means you're not really showing, what this actually, if somebody says something that's not kind or, something like that, it might be, well, you're kind of letting it slide somehow, even in situations where you might know, I really should actually speak up for myself here. This is not okay. It would be, better for my self-esteem or, whatever, if I actually said something. But there's this way of, or this sense of letting things slide. But I actually think that's, a contributing part to you feeling like you don't really belong, because it's like you can't be yourself. You can't authentically be who you feel on the inside that you are. Who's looking back at you in the mirror? Can you be that person out, in the world? There's something about that here. And this observing, it's like you're kind of on the outside observing, observing life in some way, but it doesn't mean you're never part of anything or anything like that. It's kind of like an inner feeling, this feeling of like, well, yeah, but I'm not, I'm never really truly part of what everybody else is doing here with the play and the community. It's like, see how in these cards it's like all the crows are kind of in the big tree, but there's also one that's sitting down here all by itself, kind of looking up at the rest of them like, yeah, I'm a part of this community of crows, and yet not really. That type of energy. Now, I'm not saying that you aren't. This is an inner feeling that I'm picking up on here, more of a Yeah, an inner feeling within you. And I think it has more to do with you having to fully accept that you might not be like everybody else. Nobody is totally alike. We are all unique in our own way, and that's okay. But it's like there's a story here that you are somehow telling yourself about this. All right, let's see. That's the overall feeling, that there's a theme of that. Oh, these cards are not going to cooperate with me today. So anyway, I hope you all are doing well. And thank you so much for being here. If you vibe with this video, please give it a thumbs up. Perhaps leave me a comment or consider subscribing to the channel. That would be wonderful. Yeah, the star. There's some healing energy here. All right, Spirit, tell me about the challenge here. What's the challenge for the viewer? Justice. For some of you, with this Justice card, this is a karmic pattern that you've carried with you, perhaps over lifetimes. And there's this feeling of needing to heal this in order to develop whatever it is you really want to, to bring into this lifetime, to really explore sides of yourself that are kind of being blocked by this feeling of not truly belonging. There might be something that you were meant to do with other people that you're not really unfolding because you're putting the brakes on yourself. I'm hearing, I don't know, weird things comes into my head here. All right, tell me more about the challenge here, Spirit, for the viewer here. Five of Swords. Yeah, it might, the swords, are about communications and, your mind and everything. I think there's a tendency here to, again, like I touched on earlier, maybe not always really say exactly what you're feeling. If someone say something that actually hurts you, you might not really speak up, or you might get in this situation of kind of keeping it in for a long time, and then eventually you just get really, you kind of explode, or something like that. And I mean, I'm not in that way, but kind of like things end out in situations that might be arguments that could have been avoided if you had spoken up at an earlier time. There's something about communication in groups. There's something about communicating your boundaries, standing firm on those, that is really challenging for you. Can I know more about this, Spirit? Yeah, here's the Six of Cups. This, I think, is, either a pattern you have with you from very early childhood. There might, be, you might have been told, well, this is the way it is, and your way of seeing things were just not even considered, or, something like that. Or again, for some of you, I think this is a karmic pattern that goes back a long time, that you've been trying to heal, perhaps for lifetimes, and you're just not really getting there. And again, the Lovers is at the bottom here, and here's the Two of Cups. I think this has to do with you really being able to step into community with other people and feel like you truly are part of the soul tribe and not an imposter in some way. And I don't mean in the sense that there's something you want to do that you feel like you might not be good at or something like that, but it's literally like I get this feeling of you kind of feeling like you somehow are an imposter in whatever community you are part of. And this is not necessarily something you're really conscious of. It can be an unconscious pattern that somehow is playing out in your life, and just kind of messing with your sense of feeling stable. Here's the King of Swords. In this deck, he looks, I don't know, he looks like really gloomy, like he's sitting there like, well, this has been hard, and I felt like I had to, fight for everything, Yeah, Seven of Pentacles here, you know, having to work hard on things, and it's like it just doesn't really flourish the way that I would like to. So something about, you know, feeling like you're part of the soul tribe, part of, you know, whatever community it is that you want to be a part of or is born into. And again, I have this underlying feeling that, you know, you're, yeah, approving of myself here, you know, lies over here at the bottom of, well, not in the split of this deck over here, but in a way of, you know, approving of myself, the role I have in groups, the things I bring to the table, the empathy, the kindness, the love, the, you know, being in this group setting thing here. All right. What supports your energy at this time? Page of Wands. See how she's out kind of exploring, you know, what's ahead of her. You have this idea or this dream or, you know, this concept of what is going to make a solid foundation for you here with the Ten of Pentacles. So it's not like, it's not that you don't have the vision, but there's, it's kind of like the vision is grand, but your belief in that it can actually be that way might not be so, you know, so grand. Tell me more about what the supportive energy is here. Here's the Devil energy. There's a sense of stubbornness here. So it's kind of like, on one hand, you know, you're, yeah, here's your Ten of Cups. So it's like, well, you know, despite the fact that I feel a little bit, you know, well, outcast might be a strong word, you know, but the fact that you feel like you're not really totally fitting in some way, then, you know, there's definitely this stubbornness with the Devil card here of still, you know, being like, well, I'm not going to give up my dream, though. I'm not going to give up whatever it is that I think is my Ten of Cups, Ten of Pentacles. Tell me about the Devil card. Four of Cups. Yeah, there's, you know, there's a need for healing here, but it's like you, in a way, you're sabotaging yourself. Why is that? Why is that, Spirit? What is this? Wheel of Fortune. There's some karma again. Three of Cups. Yeah, it's like this is such a deep pattern. So even though there's a part of you that knows you have a lot to give, that knows that you can, you know, create with other people and you can have something to bring to the table, it's like you're just not really, well, accepting it. You know, you're not accepting that you might not have the, or not might, but you're not accepting that you don't have to be like everybody else in order to fit in. It's kind of like this feeling of, well, if I'm not like the rest of them, if I, you know, if I might, you know, come from a different background, have some different views or whatever, then it's not going to be possible for me to fit in. But then on the other hand, you have this very clear idea about how you want to serve the world, what you want to bring to the table. So it's like you're kind of contradicting yourself here. All right, what don't we see coming here, Spirit, in regards to this? Seven of Cups, choices. Ten of Wands. Yeah, you know, it's Seven of Cups, you know, it's about choices, but it can also be about, you know, illusions and maybe being a little confused because there's too many options, that type of thing. It's like with the Ten of Wands here, the tens are endings too. So, you know, this is a pattern that you can end. But it's like whatever burden this feels like, this not really fitting in, you kind of, in some ways, you're, you know, you also, it's like you're supporting the story yourself. And I know that might not be nice to hear, but it's kind of like in some way you're also choosing to stay in this. Why is that, Spirit? What is this? Yeah, Seven of Swords. There's some level of deception here. Either people around you are telling you stories that you're kind of believing, even though you might know, well, this is not who I am. This is not really true. This is a false perspective of who I am. Or you're doing this to yourself. You might have gotten yourself stuck in a pattern of thinking that, well, this is hard with the Ten of Wands here. I'm not going to be able to pull myself out of this story. People have, opinions about me, and that's just the way it is. I'm not going to be able to change that. But, the reality is the stories that people tell, about themselves and others, there's always a choice to change the story. Tell me more about the Seven of Cups here. Yeah, the Hanged Man perspective, You have the opportunity to change the story here, to change the narrative of how you navigate some of these situations, how you, decide to stand up for yourself. And I kind of get this feeling it's like there's a lot of power in accepting your own imperfections, a lot of power in realizing, well, yeah, I might have different opinions on something, or I might do things in a different way, or I might, whatever it is. But that doesn't mean it's bad. It can be a strength also. Yeah, King of Pentacles, power. This can be, a part of yourself that you can rely on to build something. Sometimes the fact that you're standing out is really the strength of the situation, because, good teams are, a combination of people with different skills, different, whatever, so that it all kind of comes together as a whole. There's something here, Ace of Pentacles, of, becoming aware of your strength, what you actually bring to the table, and realizing that, the circle that you're in is only whole because you actually are in it. It might not feel that way all the time. Excuse me. I'm going to grab some tea here. But nevertheless, the tribe is made up of you with your imperfections and everybody else with their imperfections. So there's something about releasing this pattern. Nine of Wands. Yeah, I think the challenge is that it's been going on for so long that you kind of told yourself that this is the only way it can be. That it is kind of a struggle for you to fit in, that you can't really find a place where you naturally feel like you fit in. And it's like there's a different perspective needed here. The Hermit. This going within and kind of looking at, well, how true is this? Is the way I think of this, is that actually the whole truth? Are people really seeing me, in the way that I think they are? Sometimes people say, stupid things that lead you to believe that, I don't know, that they have very steadfast opinions on something, and it may not actually be that, locked. So it's kind of, I don't know, tell me a little bit more here, Spirit. There's something here underneath this. Yeah, Temperance. There's a balance, a need to balance the way that you see yourself and the way you think other people see you. Proud Mary. there's a need to I don't know, to be, to find a way to be proud of your weirdness, if that makes sense. Kind of like own it. Yeah, I might not be like everybody else, but hey, nobody is totally alike, and there's a place for me in this. There's something about that. Tell me more about that, Spirit. Yeah, Three of Wands, the vision, What is it you want to create? And how do you want it to look? Sometimes, if we get stuck in what we think we can't, then, if all your energy goes into thinking about, well, I don't fit in here, because I don't have the right skills, or I don't have if all you focus on is what what you think isn't possible, then that's going to be your reality. Then that's going to be what shows up. So it's kind of like this shift in your perspective to accepting who you are and then focusing on what are the wonderful things that you bring to the table. Yeah, again, here's the Six of Cups. Look back and maybe make a list of your strengths, or think back to situations where you felt like, well, I feel like I fit in here, I feel like I have something to offer. Look at the successes instead of being focused on feeling like you're not fitting in. Perhaps you need to find a new soul tribe in some ways. But for some of you, go find new groups of people. But there's also this thing of actually, just being who you are and see where it lands, if that makes sense. King of Pentacles, unapologetically be who you are and see who sticks around. There's kind of like that energy. What else, Spirit? King of Wands. Yeah, this is about leadership in your own life, in, taking charge of what do you want to create. He's, very creative, kind of sitting here going like, well, and kind of like there's this energy of unapologetically being who he is. A little weird, maybe, in some decks, the King of Wands is out in the woods, lighting a fire and that type of, so some of you might be on a spiritual journey that not everyone around you understands, but, be who you are, because really, in all honesty, that's the only way to be in the world. So again, it's like about shifting your perspective from seeing your imperfections, if you want to, to, as a weakness, to see them as a strength, to kind of realize, well, this is what makes me special. This is what makes me, capable of bringing new perspectives to the table, of, creating change, of, creating sacred space for myself and others, perhaps. Yeah. So, all right. Can we get some advice, Spirit? Here's the Tower. Yeah. It's the Tower, of course, is quick change. And here's the Two of Pentacles. So really, this is a choice. Again, it's like needing to choose. Do I want to be unapologetically myself? This is the Queen of Cups. Very intuitive, very, in flow with her inner life, with her visions, with her dreams. So do I want to see, my imperfections as something in the shadows that needs to be hidden? Or do I want to bring them out into the light and kind of use them as a strength? There's definitely something to be said for that. This is like, a lot of times the Tower is like, poof, sudden change. Here, I think it's more sudden insights, that you kind of realize, that there's just, I kind of feel like it's like a sudden realization. There's no point in keep having this perspective that your imperfections are somehow, stopping you, because really, in all honesty, they are your greatest gift. That what makes you unique, what gives you, what you bring to the table. There's something about that. Yeah, Ace of Swords here. Seeing yourself clearly and seeing that no one is perfect, whatever, what would that even look like? But you have something unique that is you, that you can bring to the table, and then people will take it or not take it, but that's up to them. You need to be unapologetically who you are. Of course, be kind to other people and all of that stuff, but yeah. Ten of Swords. So, you need to leave this behind. You really need to leave this whole concept of putting yourself down, of, not feeling accepted, it's kind of like, I mean, just quit it. Just quit it. It's like, I think there's some spirits guides here that are just like, all right, now, are you going to get it? Two of Wands, you know, this, look ahead and see yourself, you know, choose harmony. Choose to be in harmony with yourself. We can't control other people. There might always be people who won't see, you know, all your qualities, who won't understand where you're coming from. But you can choose to be in harmony with yourself. You can choose to stop putting yourself down, to stop having these conversations in your head, you know, whenever you kind of, you know, boink yourself on the head over something. Just go like, no, I'm not going to, you know, I'm going to specifically choose to not continue to talk to myself in that way. I'm going to very consciously choose to be kind to myself. You know, that is a choice. Two of Wands here. Yeah, the Magician. And that is the way to manifest something new, you know, because that's the way you change the narrative, the way the story, you know, becomes, you know, changes from being something that is, well, you know, that's a burden for you, a hindering for you, into you thinking of all your quirkiness and, you know, whatever it is, as being like magical tools to create something in the world that's aligned with who you are. Yeah. All right. Here's the Emperor at the bottom. You know, he's like, well, here I am, being in touch with my wild, crazy side, creating in the world, being stable, being abundant, you know, following my intuition, following my instinct, my wild self. Yeah, here's the Lovers. Balance. You know, your light and your dark, your shadows. Just balancing. I better cover this up, YouTube. Yeah. But, you know, balancing your masculine, your feminine side. Oh. One last card, Spirit. What else? And we got two. Yeah, here's four Wands. Your stability, you know, choosing to see everything you are as tools to create your stability, as opposed to hinderings in the form of, you know, I can't do this, or these people, you know, think this or that. You know, putting that aside and be like, well, I am who I am, and I'm going to magically create my own stability, you know, by showing up consistently as the person that I am. You know, being kind, having boundaries, making sure that you don't allow people to step all over your boundaries, so you kind of get pushed into having to defend them all the time. Transformation, yeah, it's time. And here's the Five of Cups in reverse. It's time to leave this feeling of not belonging, of not really fitting in, of, you know, some of you have this like deep sadness because you feel like you're really not part of the pack, you know, with the wolf energy. And Spirit is like, it's time to put this to bed and realize that we are all connected. And it's a matter of finding, you know, the ways that help you create a healthy foundation. But that starts with you. It literally starts with you, not with people around you, because you cannot control other people, but you can control how you see yourself. You can be kind to yourself. You can be your own best friend. You know, it's kind of a cliche, but really, you know, nobody talks to you more than you talk to yourself in your head. So be kind. The Empress, yeah. You know, nurture yourself. Be open to receive whatever the world has to give you. So, yeah. I hope that makes sense. I hope it helps somehow. And thank you so much for watching. Please give the videos a thumbs up if it resonates with you. And consider subscribing to the channel. I really appreciate that. That helps me reach more people so they can get readings and perhaps, you know, a little help in changing something in a positive direction in their life. So, thank you for watching. I appreciate you guys so much. Big, big love.